Okay. All right. Great. Thanks very much, everyone. We're going to be talking today another 2600 talk, and we're going to be talking about tracking fraud TTPs. So fraud tactics, techniques, and procedures. How fraudsters currently extract money from all sorts of people in the UK and things. And one of the ways we're going to be doing that is by looking at the Financial Ombudsman's results. So if you've never heard of the Financial Ombudsman, it's a really interesting site which basically operates by, if you have a dispute with your bank, so you get scammed or you're a victim of something, or the bank takes your money away or freezes your account, does anything with you, normally you can't really appeal that with your bank if they decide that that's it. So they're an independent third party that you can go to, and then they will investigate the case as a legal third party, and then they'll make a decision and review based on their review. And then the bank has to follow it to be part of financial regulations in the UK. And the interesting thing is, as security researchers or CCI analysts or fraud teams, you can actually go to the Financial Ombudsman website and you can look at the decisions they've made. And it's all public. So the only thing is that the victims are kind of redacted. So it's like Mr. A or Mrs. B, and then it's like Bank X or Bank G. Sometimes they name the bank. I'm not 100% sure entirely how the redaction system works, because I mean, I'm not a financial ombudsman myself, but it's pretty interesting because they say they anonymize their decisions, but then it's either easy to figure out which bank it is, or they just straight up name it. So I don't know, something to think about. This is going to be a little bit of an interactive talk. So you have the refunds and no refund. It's kind of the decision of how these things go. It's going to be an interactive talk, and I'm going to tell you the case, I'm going to tell you the story, and then you're going to decide as how do you think the Financial Ombudsman ruled, basically. Did they give a refund or did they not? And I may even ask you to, provide a little explanation, but I'll kind of just do like a little poll on after each case, and then you can, put your hand up if they think they gave a refund. You can, put your hand up if you don't think they did. So it's a kind of an interesting thing to think about and try and get into the mindset of the ombudsman. The other thing to remember is that the UK's financial industry and regulations is absolutely packed with agencies. You have the Financial Conduct Authority, which regulates all the banks and things, and pretty much any money service in the UK. And to be able to become a bank, you have to comply with their regulations and things. I don't necessarily I've never worked for a bank, but I've worked alongside banks and things in my roles at various companies I've worked for. And I've also, I've dealt and investigated a lot of cybercrime, and often these things involve carding, just stealing credit cards and, making fraudulent ones, or, basically phishing people's accounts and draining money from them, all this kinds of stuff. So I've investigated these types of crimes, and now I'm looking at how the UK deals with it themselves in many ways, which is really interesting, because this is what drives cybercrime in many ways. So if you go to the Financial Ombudsman's website, you can start to find interesting cases that are relevant to sort of fraud teams and CTI teams, using some of these keywords. So if you look at things like investment scams, you look at crypto, anything to do with cryptocurrency, anything to do with phishing, you can start to find things where it's like cyber dependent crime you can kind of start to find those things, and things like remote access software and malware as well. So these it's not as common you'll see malware stuff, but there is one case which is pretty interesting, you'll see. So in this example, we have a kind of a compromise where someone who uses a service called Prepay, they received a phone call from Prepay, apparently using presenting itself as the Prepay number. So they had spoofed Prepay's number, and then they told the victim to log out of their account, delete the app from their phone, and they were going to help them clean their account or protect their account or something like that. They told them it's been compromised and you need to log out and delete the app, and then we'll set you up again. Basically just tricked into providing the fraudster with their login credentials. Basically, they sent them a QR code over email, and then they just logged in and gave them their credentials. Then Prepay detected that someone had logged into that account from an unrecognized Android device. So the fraudster, so the victim used an iPhone, the fraudster used an Android. There's one way to detect that it's malicious. And then they actually were able to figure out all the different transactions and things that the fraudster had made. So that totaled about £23,000 in total. And Prepay said, we're actually not going to refund you because it's your fault that you were phished, you were socially engineered. It wasn't the fault of our security that this happened. It was because you were tricked and you gave the fraudster access to your account. So who here thinks the ombudsman is going to rule in favor of the refund? Put your hands up. Only two. And who thinks they're not going to refund them? So the rest of the room. So 98% of the room think there's not going to be a refund. They actually refunded them. They actually refunded them. So the victim contacted Prepay and Prepay told them the situation. And Prepay was like, no, we're not refunding you. It's your fault. It wasn't our fault of our security. You got socially engineered. But then the ombudsman upheld the complaint because basically Prepay did not provide enough guidance and have enough controls in place to prevent the fraud from happening. And that's where the ombudsman gets you. So the victim got their £23,000 back, and the fraudster maybe got to keep it as well. I don't know. So £59,000 was stolen by some mystery malware. This is a really unusual case because basically it involved two victims, and they both complained to their bank. I think it was Revolut at the time, and they said, £59,000 got stolen out of my account, sent to this one person, and then converted to cryptocurrency, and then sold, gone basically. The interesting thing was this is because both victims said that it all started from they downloaded a fake QR code scanner or from somewhere, and that had compromised their Revolut accounts basically. So one victim downloaded, I read the case and they both downloaded the same app, this fake QR code scanner. The money went from one account to the other, then converted to cryptocurrency, and it was gone. So victim A had 59,000 stolen. So she contacted Revolut and said, please refund me the money because it was stolen. It was the problem of you guys is your security didn't protect my phone and things. It's all sounding very like, how can you really prove that this happened kind of thing. What is this malware? Who knows? It was a really unusual case because they managed to log into the account. They got the one-time passcodes. They got all the credentials. They got in, transferred the money. 59,000 just went like that. So who here thinks the ombudsman upheld the complaint or did not uphold the complaint? So refund or no refund? So hands up for refund. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hands up for no refund, the rest of the room. So 90% of the room thinks no refund, and then 10% of the room thinks refund.
Victims to malware.
The ombudsman refunded them. So £59,000 was refunded to the first victim who had the money stolen, and then the second victim had like £300 in her account, and that was refunded as well, I think. The weird thing was, so this whole mystery malware, this Android malware, fake QR code scanner, the ombudsman doesn't have cyber capabilities. They can't remotely connect to your phone and analyze it or anything like that. But they did go to the Samsung store, and the Samsung store confirmed that there was malware on the phone. So it was real malware. And that was the thing that kind of tipped the ombudsman's decision into refunding the money. So the bank's security controls did not protect them from this malware, even though they downloaded it. All sorts of weird caveats in this case, but it was definitely an interesting one because Android banking malware is something that's it's often known about, but you don't really hear about it, how effective it is in ways. And if you get one victim, you can get their life savings basically. This was an interesting one. So it involved a victim who was asleep at night, and then a load of transactions on his iPhone, on his banking app, took place, something like 3 a.m. or something like that. And he had about £8,000 just leave his account. And he woke up, saw all the notifications on his phone, and he was like, why are these transactions taking place? I don't recognize where they're going. I don't recognize who's doing it. I instantly contacted the bank and said, what's going on? Can I get my money back? Can you freeze it? And basically, the bank started speaking with him, and they said, how do you think your phone was compromised? Were you phished at all? Were you socially engineered? He was like, no, I was asleep at the time it happened. Did you log in? Like, what happened? Where was your phone? Was it like by the side of your bed? Where was it? He's like, oh, it was locked in my cupboard or something like that. So it was an unusual case. So they had £8,000 from his mobile app on his iPhone just transferred like that. So who here thinks the bank refunded him or didn't refund him? So hands up for refund. So about 50% of the room. Hands up for no refund. Another 50%, maybe 30% no refund. Maybe some undecided. He didn't get a refund. No, I'm not. These are just cases I found. So the ombudsman decided not to refund the guy because they looked at the logs and the logs never lie. They looked at his iPhone and it said like the same credentials, the same phone number, one-time passcode, everything had happened the same way that every transaction he'd ever taken place on his bank account appeared the same behaviors. So the ombudsman and the bank could not see how his phone was compromised. So they just didn't refund him because they said, you're lying. You just did the transactions yourself. Right. So that's why they didn't refund him. You can come up with all sorts of you can say my phone was stolen, my dad did it, or whatever, family members did it. If they can't prove that it was, if they can't prove it was some sort of fraud or lapse in security controls, then it's not their fault. So they don't have to refund you. So this is an interesting case. We had £53,000 lost from business email compromise, and it wasn't a business; it was an individual, which is actually quite, probably scary for some of you. So basically, Miss Z and her partner were trying to get a mortgage together to pay for an apartment. They were in email communications with their solicitor, back and forth, when can you pay the deposit? How much money have you got? When, all these kind of things, organizing this, massive long email chain. And it was like a really tight time frame of, you have to provide the deposit by next Wednesday, otherwise you lose the apartment. You can't get that one. And suddenly, whilst she was getting ready to send the deposit, a random email replied to the chain or a random email was sent to her using a typo squatting email address, and that was pretty. And they used the same email signature of the solicitor that she had. So it was almost a perfect impersonation scam. The fraudster impersonated the solicitor and said, please, can you send the money to these bank account details instead? I know we're waiting for the money, but instead of this one, instead of these bank account details, send it to this one. So because of the time sensitivity, she did it. She was like, oh, okay, I have the deposit ready. I'll send it all to you. So she sent like 53,000 to the fraudster and, her life savings, and it was gone. Basically because of this, she lost the apartment, couldn't get the apartment. She lost her life savings, number one, and her partner as well that she had been getting this apartment with, basically left her as well. So literally like a worst case scenario. Absolutely savage. Yeah. Really, really savage case. But she kind of fell for it in a way. She was tricked into it. So who thinks that the bank decided to refund her? 1, 2, 3. So maybe 20% of the room. So who thinks that they didn't refund her? Maybe the other 50% of the room. Some mathematicians. They did refund her. They actually did refund her. So the entire email chain was provided to the ombudsman. They said, listen, it's not really our fault. It was the security of the solicitors that they basically had their email system compromised. The fraudsters were probably watching the entire email communication and then decided to interject right at the last moment to change the bank account details and then get the money. the solicitor didn't spot it. She didn't spot it. The fraudster got the money, and basically the bank didn't want to refund her. The bank said, you were the one that fell for it. We have so many warnings, like watch out for sudden bank detail changes, watch out for all these kinds of different warnings and things, watch out for typo squatting domains. They have like a whole brochure on how to say like OPSEC during mortgage deals or something like that. It's like they provided it to her. And they said, like, because we gave that to her and then she still fell for it, it's not our fault. So they didn't want to refund her. But the ombudsman looked at it and he said, basically decided to refund her the whole amount. Because of the stress and everything, the bank had to pay an extra £400 compensation. So good guy ombudsman in this scenario. So this is another interesting case. He had a fake NCA case. Basically, an old lady, an old grandma, she decided she had a pop-up come up on her laptop, and it said, you have a virus on it. So she rang the phone number. She spoke to two individuals who claimed to be the NCA, and the NCA guys said they fixed the laptop, and they said, it's been, everything's been stolen, but we're tracing the hackers. Are you able to send us £2,000, and then we'll use that to trace the hackers and arrest them? So send it to us. Send it to the hackers. We'll trace it, and eventually we'll catch them. And they gave her a whole cover story, and they said, you're part of the operation now. We're recruiting you. We're recruiting you. And they said, if your bank asks you about this transaction, use the cover story that you were using it to pay for a gardener. And she was like, yes, she did that. So the bank called her and they said, where is this money going? She kept doing it. She kept sending money to them. They're like, keep sending the money. We're going to catch the criminals eventually. She sent up to the bank called her and they said, why, they blocked it. They were like, why are you sending the money? She gave this fake story. And then, the bank was like, well, it's a gardener, all right, send the money. And then eventually she told her family members that she was part of an NCA investigation. And the family members were like, you're being scammed. and she was like, oh yeah, now that you mention it, I probably am. She just lost all the money. The bank tried to stop her. All this kind of, she's an old dear. What they're like. We live in, around Bournemouth and Christchurch, sort of old dears around. What it's like. So who thinks that she got refunded or they didn't refund her? So hands up for refund. 1, 2. So she actually did get refunded. No, the NCA didn't catch him. The ombudsman figured it out. The ombudsman figured out that it was a scam, and they kind of, they said the bank wasn't as careful enough, didn't provide her enough advice, didn't have enough security controls in place, and they essentially let her get scammed. So they decided told the bank to refund her the whole amount. So the ombudsman's not paying her any money. The ombudsman's directing these banks to refund these victims, basically. So it's a really interesting case of how far are they willing to go to help someone. Yeah, it can be. Yeah. So another case here: £70,000 lost to a fake trading platform. So in 2023, Mr. B fell victim to a cryptocurrency investment scam. Who hasn't? He was told to invest in Bitcoin via a third-party investment firm. He got the whole spiel. They're telling him how good, you double his money instantly, this kind of stuff. An investment firm called G. So Mr. B interacted with them via a messaging platform, so like Telegram and WhatsApp. They guided him, they got him to install AnyDesk, which is a remote access, legitimate remote access software, download it onto a computer, and then the fraudster can connect to his device and control it remotely. From that, they're able to get Mr. G to, send his money from his bank account to, I believe it was Revolut as well, because Revolut has a built-in cryptocurrency exchange system. So you could take your bank funds, buy Bitcoin, and they just basically give you a cryptocurrency wallet with Bitcoin in it. And then the scammers get you to send the Bitcoin to their trading platform, where you can see like the balance in it, and you can see, oh, it's going up, it's doubling, tripling, all this kind of stuff. And then you go to withdraw the money, and you can't, basically. It's just, it's locked. Oh no, you have to pay this fee. And then the scammers, they're pretty sinister. They'll even be like, oh, you need to pay capital gains tax, and you have to pay that before we withdraw it. They kind of bring up all these regulations and things. It's kind of, it's like, it must be really upsetting having, £70,000 we're dealing with here. So he was properly scammed, but what do you think? Do you guys think he was refunded, or he wasn't refunded? So you got one person refund. How many? So 5 people think he's got a refund. 15, 6 people refund, 16 no refund. No refund. He lost the 70,000. So the ombudsman, they basically said, it was up to you. Everything we did, like, they have so many warnings about it. People still fall for it. It's not there. At the end of the day, the victim was so motivated to bypass all the warnings. It's on them at that point. So kind of a similar one. We have a romance scam, so £40,000 here. So Mr. G connected with a woman on Tinder. She chatted with him on WhatsApp, Skype, Zoom, all these different things. And then she introduced him to her uncle, who was this investment mogul. And he was, he's a trader in cryptocurrency, showed how his extravagant lifestyle and things. And she was like, if you just invest a bit of money with him, we'll help you. And then Mr. G, he also got this. Mr. G was tricked into downloading AnyDesk, and whenever that happens, it's kind of all downhill from there. They got him to open up a crypto wallet to begin the investment, and then he made 5 payments totaling £40,000, converted it to cryptocurrency, and then transferred it to this investment platform. And then as soon as he tried to withdraw the money, they're like, oh, you have to pay tax, and we have to take our fees, and ultimately you just can't withdraw it. They've got the money. Once you've sent it, they've got it. And the bank said, they took so many attempts to stop him from sending the money. They gave him so many warnings and things, and he still fell for it. So they didn't want to refund him. But what do you guys think? Do you think the ombudsman pities this man, decides to refund him? Anyone? No? No refund. But yeah, no refund. So the ombudsman said, it was up to you. This was on you. But this is like, listen to this. This was a pretty crazy situation, because he had reportedly been called 21 times by his bank not to do it, and he had to go in person to send the funds to the cryptocurrency app. And the final payment, he had to go into the branch to authorize the final payment of £25,000. So they weren't going to let him do it. They said, you have to go in person. We'll try and convince you. We'll try and tell you not to do it. And he still did it. And the bank explained to him, like, this is how cryptocurrency scams work. You are a classic victim of a cryptocurrency scam. They get you to download the software. They got you on a dating app. You just still did it. So unlucky, bro. And there's actually many such cases of this going on. So Mr. L, Miss L, Miss C, they all lost thousands, like Mr. P and Mr. K, over £200,000 gone, no refund. All to the same thing, the same fake trading platform things. WhatsApp, all this kind of stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy. And this was like half an hour of me searching in the ombudsman files, and it's crazy. And some stats here just to highlight how crazy of an issue this is. So over 30,000 reports between 2023 and 2024 of this type of fake trading platform scams. The average loss was £25,000. So once they've got you hooked, they really get you to keep investing. And the City of London, they gather all these reports and things. They said there was one victim lost £11.9 million to this scam. So it's really, really crazy. Yeah, it's really crazy stuff. So a little summary here. So the ombudsman, he managed to help, people get over, what's that, over 140,000, 150,000 back in refunds. But, from the cases we looked at, still over 100,000 gets lost, and that's in 3 cases. So it's really, really bad stuff. But this is the modern fraudster toolkit. They use business email compromise. They use WhatsApp. They call people. They use QR codes. Revolut, Bitcoin, fake trading platforms. It's just too easy for them to do it. And AnyDesk, remote access software, it's just exactly, it's all they need to connect to someone and start controlling their computer, guiding them, and it's it. And then obviously Tinder, with these dating apps, you can never really verify someone through these apps without sort of meeting them in person and things. And even then, they could still scam you at the end of the day. So it's a really crazy ecosystem, and the UK is losing hundreds of millions of pounds a year to it, despite all the warnings, all the controls. Every major bank, every major cryptocurrency trading platform deals with this stuff. And if you work in the finance industry, you'll be dealing with this stuff as well. And that's it. Thanks very much. Does anyone have any questions? Front row, come on.
Two kind of. So one is a couple of them were refunded, right? And the victims were just using the mobile app. So how many warnings enough? Because even if you go to send like a moderate amount of money now on the mobile banking app, you get like 3 warnings to say very different things. That's
it. It depends on how motivated the user is. I mean, there's all sorts of studies have taken place. Everyone thinks pensioners and things are the most likely to be vulnerable, but I actually believe it's sort of the millennial age group now, because they're so entrenched with online applications and ecosystems, and they're so desperate for money that they just take the risk, even though all the warnings. When you've got someone on the phone or a video call, or you're guiding them via remote desktop app, they just kind of they're in the situation and they just fall for it. It takes a lot of courage to kind of put your foot down, say no, and back off.
Like if they want to get a refund on behalf of the victim and there's warnings within the mobile app, how many warnings can the bank say, look, we gave them enough warnings and they're not get a refund?
Yeah. So there are strict rules, and there are cases like I showed you that they said, the bank called the guy 21 times and he still did it. There has to be a kind of a balance. Like if the bank warns you so many times, it's blocking the transactions, stopping you from doing it, and you still do it, then it's not on the bank anymore. It's at that, and then but that requires sophisticated fraud analytics and transaction analysis and all this kind of stuff. Like how many times has the account transferred £20,000 to a brand new payee, that kind of thing. If the account's never done that before, then you hold it and you get in touch with them and ask them, did you mean to do that? This kind of stuff. And that's a very simple like behavioral statistic, like analytic they can do. Anyone else? Any questions? Yeah.
I think my question is a bit of an extension of what you just asked, but obviously there's a few cases there where Ombudsman just said he didn't put enough controls in place. Sure, they might not have. It sounds like to a degree the bank is a kind of a losing game, though. You can never put the right controls for every situation to the bank, right? Otherwise, we'll be out of jobs and security.
Yeah.
Is there an instance where a bank physically refuse you your money, like in that final example where it went in and they've gone, no, we have a due care, and you cannot have this money. Appreciate your money.
Yeah.
But do they have that ability?
Well, so I don't work for a bank, so I can't answer that fully. But from reading the Ombudsman files, there are different ways they can get their money out. They can block them from sending it to certain places, but if they withdraw all the cash and then put it in another bank and then do it then, or another way, eventually they can get their own money out of their account. The bank can only delay; they can't block you forever, right? Because then they go to the Ombudsman and say the bank's not giving me my money. Yeah.
Sorry. A lot of those, in fact, all of those involve the bank account holder being involved in some shape or form, whether they misled or actually would do the money. In a day and age where, for example, like Lloyd's Bank, I don't know if they still do it, they put the sample of the voice and then verify the voice afterwards. In a day and age where machine learning can impersonate voices or defeat your client.
Yeah.
Are we seeing a rise in those kinds of scams?
Yeah, I mean, there's entire toolkits, there's entire things on GitHub that you could just download and do these types of things with it. Like it's really not hard for fraudsters to do it. the question was like the rise of AI and fraud. There's all sorts of ways that it can be used: video generation, voice generation, image generation, text, massive text paragraphs of explaining, why I need my money, that kind of thing. It's just, it is kind of a losing battle for these banks at the end of the day. The fraudsters have the upper hand. The banks, there's just an acceptable loss at some point. If you're a bank making $1 billion a year, but $1 million gets scammed from your customers, that's just a risk, and it's part of the business. If anything, like the cost that goes into hiring the personnel, buying the security tools, the detection tools, all this kind of stuff, it can cost just as much as the losses in some ways. And you're kind of playing a game of shuffling money around. Of, if we invest enough in fraud detection, we stop X amount of fraud. That's what they're up against at the end of the day. Was there another question?
Was this just a covert training session to work at financial ombudsman?
No. No, you could be a financial ombudsman of your own free will. There's no question.
Did you see any common trading platforms mentioned in your report? Do you know the fake trading platforms?
Oh, the fake trading platforms. No, they kind of anonymize them. They're like fake trading platform G or fake trading platform X. They don't really go into descriptions of these, because a lot of them are just like websites that are spun up and fake apps that are spun up. And then as soon as it gets caught, they just spin it down and rebrand it. Wow. They still did it. That's it. This is what the banks face as well. It's the only thing you could do is warn your family members. That's as much as you could do. It's always up to them at the end of the day. Yeah. Yeah. Question.
Well, hypothetically, I would to infect myself with a bank controller. Could I then,
You have to take that up with the ombudsman. I don't know. Was there another question? Yeah.
You never told us what the bank put in place to prevent it from, acting. But when she was asked, are you being told to lie to us? Because is that not what they're looking for?
Yeah.
Vulnerable people, so
yeah. So the basis that she was refunded was that there wasn't enough protection. So there was some. They did, question her, but they should have gone further. And in the case file, the ombudsman was basically like, you should have gone further. You should have confirmed it. You should have tried harder, basically. Well, again, there is a specific set of guidance, and if you don't tick all the boxes, if you got 5 of the 10 boxes, to them it's not enough. I don't know all 10 things. I just made that number up, but there are a strict list of things you have to have, and if you don't have them, and the customer, they got to 4 and then they fell at 5 and gave money, then it's on the bank. Yeah. Question?
Do you think this setting is pretty excessive?
Well, is it? People still fall for it. They still do it. I mean, maybe you could go in and set, if you had a setting where it's like, I'm an experienced user, I don't need as many warnings. The fraudsters will just tell people to do that. Questions?
I got like 29 phone calls and went into the bank.
Yeah.
If you just go into the bank and be like, I'm giving this money to a scammer, I know where it's going, I'm being scammed. Send it anyway.
Well, the bank will record the conversation and send it to the ombudsman. Because the banks send all the logs from the banking app, from the conversation, from the chat support systems. They send it all to the ombudsman to make their own decision. And they are incentivized to not refund the money. All right, that's probably it for questions. You can ask me later if there's anything else, but let's end the recording there. Thanks.